Okay, I'm going to talk about the differences between inspiration and motivation. And I'm talking about these largely because there are things that I post related to Bengal Fuel online in different places, blah, 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 that have to do with spiritual understanding, that talks about being inspired, that is about this concept of receiving inspiration, to be tuned in. And there's people out there who are in another sort of area where, their understanding is not necessarily that you're receiving. Their understanding is that, you have a plan and you got to do it and you know what you need to do and you do it. And that's motivation, self-motivation, or whether it's the threat. Okay, so I want to talk about the differences with those. And I also have to insert into that, and I'm bringing this in because people will ask me about this. People will message me, and then they want to know maybe my thoughts on, or maybe they don't volunteer to know my thoughts on it, what inspiration is, what the hell I'm talking about, but I'll talk about it. But I realize that it can potentially become more confusing. Okay, so you have to bring in also incentives or incentivization. Like, when I say motivation, I don't mean the same thing as saying I'm motivated by my paycheck, or I get up and I go do this because I have to feed someone. Okay? Those are incentives. It's an incentive for you to do a job to get paid. Like the pay is the incentive to do a job that you may not want to do. Okay, I don't want to actually go and do this work, but I know that if I go and I do this work, X amount of dollars is waiting for me afterward. So the pay incentivizes something that I don't necessarily want to do. Motivation seems to be in this place of, I do actually want to do this, or I want the outcome, I want the result, I want what I want. And I've been told that this is how you have to do it, or somewhere I got the notion, bad, advice, or somebody instilled this into me somewhere. Or this is just what everybody who says, like if we're talking about, say if it's music, we could use a musician person as a hypothetical in this, and we could say, this is just what everybody says that you have to do. This is what all the other people around me say I have to do, blah, blah, blah. Which, I personally could go into plenty of those different things where I could say, somebody told me don't do this and it worked out fine. Somebody says, you can't do this. Like I'm constantly told, even still to this day, privately at least by different people, what I can't do, what I'm not supposed to do with a music video, particularly because it's weird instrumental, often electronic music or whatever, or it's ambient music. So you're not supposed to do that. You can't do that, blah, blah, blah. So rather than putting it on the plane of what someone purely says you can't do, let's just put it more in the territory of it's something, we don't know why, what you feel that you must motivate yourself to do is something that for some reason you don't want to do at the moment. There can be a million different reasons, because sometimes you can feel a genuine pull towards something, then you can start to do it, and then you can get sort of worn out or be unsure of what the next step is. And that's where self-motivation doesn't do anything except you go grinding in the mud with it, because if you put yourself in a position where you're trying to force yourself to do something that you don't really quite feel comfortable doing for some reason or another, and now you're thinking motivation, meaning somebody can tell me something that'll get me to bring back that fresh feeling of when I was excited when I wanted to do it, or someone's going to give me a good hard talking to, as if that is somehow going to magically lead to a feeling of creative inspiration. All these different things, right? So never mind where it came from, where the not quite wanting to do it thing came from, but that's what is the necessity for motivation. Not the incentive, not the reward for what you do, but this feeling of, I need to get something moving, and I need someone or myself somehow to make the thing move. I need to participate in the making of it move. Because here I am at point A, here's what I want over at point B. I have been told that you must go across this windy road. Whatever, you must go across this terrain, this on this trajectory to get there. And I went halfway there, and now either I don't want to do it or I can't figure out exactly what my next step is. So I want to try to figure out a way to plow, to hit that, to come at that in a different way maybe, or to overcome it in some way. Those things usually don't work. And I'm talking specifically to the people who know what I'm talking about, who've tried that and then realized that it didn't work. And then that's when I can explain, here's the difference when inspiration comes in, or here is what inspiration is in comparison to that. If you have ever gotten yourself to a position where you do feel stuck, let's just use this because this will more clearly define what the difference is rather than starting at the beginning of inspiration. Let's just go to the halfway point. Let's say you had an inspired idea, you know it for sure. You felt called to it, it felt good, it was fun, it was exciting. You started taking steps in that direction, you started feeling that it was pulsing and moving and there was something going with it, it was getting results. But somewhere along the line you got discouraged or you got sapped or somebody told you something that fucked you off of what you were doing that you were excited about, and now you're sitting in a place where you're kind of like, and then you feel as though, all right, now I got to have somebody, something, got to stir up the motivation within myself and get this going again. Now, some people have discovered, myself included, and a bunch of other musicians that I know, and a bunch of actors that I know, and a bunch of blah, 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 blah. Everybody I know, everybody, actor, actress, whatever the fuck, has experienced this at some point. You really have the motivation in the sense that you really have the energy and the excitement, but something has occurred where what is sideways is you don't know, you don't have a strong sense of knowing that what you'll do is, that's what you need to do. So now you're almost saying, look, tell me what it is that I should do in the creation of this creative endeavor, taking me from point A to point B, the creation of a film, let's say, going from point A to point B, or album, point A to point B, and I'm halfway there. What do I need to do? Because I would gladly pour my soul into this and kill it. I could go so hard on this and create it, but I don't actually know what to do. So there's that, as opposed to the not necessarily wanting to do it thing, which is another thing too, and I'm talking about that as well. But if you reach that halfway point, you can understand that there is that point at which there's sometimes, and you can say this for sure after you've completed a particular thing, a particular creative project, whatever, you can look back on it and you can see that there are times where the next inspired nugget that gets you to know what it is that you're supposed to do, that you can then just finish it really fast, comes when it is least expected, in the sense that you've actually kind of given up and said, I just can't do this. Then you can almost get into a place where you can start to do something else, that you can rediscover the feeling of it's fun and I want to do it, on the subject of something else. That then brings you back into that feeling of being excited. Then when you reassess the thing that you thought you were stuck on, that you were only halfway through with, you're like, wait, now I have an idea to finish this. This is a piece of cake. Motivation would bring you to that place, and you would start to feel like, well, I guess I don't really want this that badly because I'm not doing anything with it. Or you would not quite want to do it because the fun isn't there from your perception. So you get halfway through and the fresh feeling isn't there anymore, and you're not sure exactly where it was, what caused it to be that way. It's irrelevant. You'll never get to the bottom of it. Who cares? Some way or another, you're stuck in some position where you don't feel the same level of excitement about it, which is fine. Because the thing is already, you're already well along the way to completing the thing. That the finishing of it is often the easiest thing to do, but it's a matter of letting go of the idea of it's got to just be what I set it out to be. The point A to the point B, that's the only way to get there. So that's sort of the flaw in the motivation versus inspiration thing, because the inspiration you could be halfway there. It's better if I just try to give some kind of example. Let's say I'm making a film, and I won't get very specific about it, but this is true. This is a thing that's happening. Okay, so I'm making a film, and I know my story and I know my characters, and I'm exploring the casting portion of it. So I'm looking for people who can play those roles. And in some cases, the person needs to know, the character calls for a person to be able to do a particular thing, have a skill in life that would make the shooting of it work or not work, whether they can do this particular thing. So I don't know anybody who can do this particular thing who is also an actor. And I've tried casting from the perspective of, I'll try to find somebody who is that, which when you go looking for, this is how motivation versus inspiration can get screwy, is you go too on the nose looking for the thing that you're actually looking for, and you can find that you somehow aren't finding it. It's almost like you're saying it wrong, and you know that something's not right. And casting is a great example of this inspiration versus motivation thing I'm talking about, because it is basically like, everything that I know about spiritual concepts and the attraction-based universe in a nutshell, because it's like I'm writing my idea out, and then I'm casting a line out into the country to find somebody to play this role, and then I reel back in and, okay, here's 500 people for this one role, here's all the actresses, here's all the actors, etc. Or here's 1,000 people for this one role. But it's like, without timing and without an inspired idea, it's almost meaningless. It's almost like, really? You couldn't find somebody? You had 400 people apply for this thing and you couldn't make it work? That can happen, sure, yeah. You can just not find the thing that you're looking for because you're looking for it too much. Or you somehow got screwed up in the way in which you're looking for it, where you don't know the right word to say that would make it clear what it is that you want, so that someone could then say, I am this and I'll do this. So let's call that one of these so-called halfway points. You got all the stuff on paper, you got the whole thing, you'd be ready to shoot it and finish it. Everything's there except for the actor. Everything's there except for the casting of this particular thing. So then, how do you re-get into inspiration and not double down on motivation? Because doubling down on motivation would be, I didn't find that person, that's bullshit. I'm going to look harder, and I'm going to do another casting notice. I'm going to send it over here instead of over there. I'm going to try it this way instead of that way. Well, you could do that. And I've done stuff like that for things to try to find. It doesn't always work. Sometimes it just makes it harder. Now you're just pushing it away. Now you're almost saying, this is an unfindable thing that I'm trying to find. It's like you're sending out the wrong signal. So I put myself into a place of saying, well, I need to just get back to the vibration of just fun. Because that's where I was when I was inspired with the idea to begin with. If I get back there, then I'll figure out what to do. I'll know what to do. I know I'll know what to do. Seems a little crazy to me right now because I'm sitting in a place where I'm not really sure, but I know I will know what to do if I get back into that right kind of vibration, because fun is where the path is. The good feeling, that's always the path. So okay, so I back off. And I'm this is from personal experience, so everything I'm saying is true. So I back off of it and I say, all right, just not going to worry about that right now. But I do feel like, I want to make a Bengal Fuel video because that's really fun, and that just will completely take my mind off of this, and I'll just be rolling on that, and I'll be having fun again. And the momentum of getting that going again and finding somebody for that role and then shooting that thing and everything, it'll get me back into the fun vibration. And I'm sure, because I've done it before, I know all the idea for the casting of the other project. It'll come together after I'm in that vibration again, because I somehow got off of it, and then it turned into motivation, and it turned into going in circles and not having answers. So if I want to get back into that inspired receiving of what to do next, that I can then put my energy into and go forward with and put the action into, it'll be great. Because if I do stuff when I'm inspired action-wise, it works out. When I do stuff when I'm not, it's just like, banging my head against the wall. It's not going to do anything. So okay, so I step back. So I'm going to do the Bengal Fuel video. Start, I've got an inspired idea for that, because I'm already it's so fun. The thought of doing it is so fun and so free, and it gets me away from doing the thing that felt like it was stuck. So I find a person, perfect, really fast, really easy, because it's just, the whole thing is all the weight that was on me of the I can't find the person for the role for the movie is off of me now. So I'm like, woo! And now I just want to do something and just, this is going to be easy. Of course I can find somebody for the video. It'll be a piece of cake. And I find somebody. And they're great. And we're having a ball and we're shooting and it's great and blah, blah, blah. Video gets done. Then we're talking. Then the conversation slowly starts to move into a direction that's more my kind of talk, more my spiritual stuff, more my lifestyle, philosophy, law of attraction, vibration, gobbledygook stuff that I talk about constantly. That either you're on that wavelength or you're not. Because if you're not, we're probably not even having a conversation. So it goes into that kind of stuff, and then it slowly starts to veer into, what are you doing kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden I realize that the person that I'm talking to, I'm making the video with, has the particular skill that is required of the actor to play the movie role that was never even anywhere on my mind when I was looking for the person to be in the Bengal Fuel video whatsoever, nor do I even have a clue how it came up in the conversation. It just was there again somehow, because I didn't intend to shoot the video and then start talking about the movie with the person that I don't think like that. I'm not looking for people in this like desperate way. And it wasn't like a sudden creative thought to be like, oh, I know, I'll ask the person that I made the music video with, because surely they'll have this skill on their resume. They'll know how to. No, it's too weird of a thing, and it's too specific of a thing, and it. But not only did it come up that they're good at that particular thing, but that's what they've really invested their time and their life in. I'm not going to say what it is, because the movie will get made, and I'm just going to shut the fuck up. But the point is that it's a little bit like that inspiration is a path where the receiving of the next thing is always right on the edge. It's always right there when you're in the feeling sort of mood and energy of what inspiration is. So what inspiration is kind of like this clear flowing channel to be on, a wavelength of energy to kind of roll, to kind of flow with. That is a whole different fucking thing than the necessity of motivating yourself because you're sitting in a place where you somehow have determined yourself to be lazy, or you're procrastinating, or you're somehow stuck for a good reason. You lack a particular piece of knowledge, whatever it is, and you can't finish the thing. And so, but it goes the same with the idea of what the origin of a particular thing is. So if you want to take it a step back and say, not just when you're stuck, how would inspiration apply in any given sense? How it applies is that if you'd stop making the determination that here is me, I'm standing at one end of the room, and here is the exit, and I'm trying to get out of that room. And I know that I must go straight through and pass all of these people and these tables. Let's pretend you're at a restaurant and you're trying to get to the exit, which is also the entrance as far as you're concerned. It's the way you came in, and it's the way you're going to leave. And there's all these obstacles. And to further, exemplify or explain what the need for motivation comes from with people is that, let's say the determination of how you're going to get through those obstacles is something that's beyond your capability. You don't have enough time to do it, or if you did it in the way that everybody has told you to do it, then it'll be much later that you got the result that you wanted than you'd like. So you're trying to work out a way to shortcut it by way of, well, if I can elevate my energy level somehow, motivate my energy level somehow, then I will be able to work twice as hard. But you're still then saying that I know that this way is the only way. I have already determined that that's where the exit is, and I have already determined what the obstacles are, and I've determined that I must go through them, and I've determined that it's difficult, so I've determined that I must double down my energy in order to brace myself and push through this. Inspiration is like, oh, did you know that there's a back door that you can just go right out of? That's the difference. Inspiration is wait for the path to show itself to you rather than assume that you know what the path is that you must go on and that it must include all these steps that you've determined are the steps that must be taken. Instead of if you were genuinely looking for the outcome, then you would be open to the inspiration to receive what's the next guidepost to the next inspired action, etc. And then you'll realize that the way that the universe works in terms of setting these things up in an energy sense is it'll combine multiple things together into one. So you'll go and you'll get back on the fun vibration and you'll be shooting the video with the person that you want to be shooting that video with because you're having fun, but it'll turn out that that person is also at the same time capable of producing the performance for the movie role at the same time, combined into one thing. Oh, and now this person is your friend too, and now as you were working on this film, you're really able to get more answers on the development of that particular character even more because now you're talking to somebody who's an expert in that particular. It's like the universe will figure out a way to work it out better than you could have ever imagined, because that's like gold that you can't get from motivation. Because you'd think that, oh, I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to find the expert on this thing. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Maybe you will meet someone, maybe you'll try and it won't exactly work out. Because if it's coming from what your thought of what it is that you need to do versus what you feel that you should do, what you feel called to do, there's a big difference. Because the calling can take you there immediately. I don't have to go put up another casting notice because that role, I found the person for that role. How did you find the person for that role? Not by looking for that person for that role, by being open enough that when I felt stuck, I could say, I know that I need a light and easy and fun feeling. Well, I'll get that from making the Bengal Fuel video because I always do. And then it'll just show up. I expect that it will. I expect that I'll have the answer of what to do. I expect that I'll get back on the wavelength of what's the next. And then you're there, and all of a sudden you're there. And it was 10 times easier than you thought. So that's sort of the difference. Motivation is only necessary if you're clueless, and then you've predetermined or presupposed what the amount of man hours you have to put into this particular thing is, and that it's too much to do in a sense. So then you have to figure out a way to kind of like circumvent it and sort of, how can you squeeze extra time out of yourself? How can you squeeze extra energy out of yourself in order to do it faster or better in this particular area and so forth? And the reality is that while that's still possible, those methods are possible, they're slower and they're stickier. And in some cases, they feel like they will never make any progress whatsoever. Whereas if you're able to tap into this inspiration, then it can just kind of keep coming to you and keep rolling to you and be easier as it goes and so forth. So, but it's important, it's so important in this confused explanation that I'm giving. It's so important to remember that the feeling is what matters, because what is guiding you when you feel inspired is the sense, the feeling sense, not the I got pinched in my arm, but the feeling, the gut feeling, the solar plexus, the good feeling that's pulling you toward it, that lets you know intuitively that it's right. And there's an almost relaxed kind of feeling as opposed to brooding and trying and squeezing, which is not the way that you want to do things if you want to get the best results. It's really not. It's better to be open and relaxed and loose. If you ask yourself the question, which would I prefer? It's easy to say that you would prefer to have things come potentially packaged together all at once so that you are able to get two outcomes, kill two birds with one stone, have everything all work out, versus a continual need to kind of keep pushing and pushing and pushing and never feeling like you're knowing. Knowing is really the key. And the feeling of knowing the sense of it, the strong sense of knowing, is something that happens within. It's not something that's going to come from another person, or that even going to be a self-imposed motivating factor. It's knowing is an emotional state. It's a paradisiacal kind of mental euphoria of arrival at this is correct, this is right. And you can be on that frequency all the time, not all the time, but most of the time, to be able to do what you want to do in the most effective possible way, versus when you have to motivate, it's like you got it all figured out, you got the map, but the map isn't the fastest way to get to what you want in most cases. In fact, it's usually just a lot of bullshit that a lot of other people told you that you have to do, that you're doing almost ritualistically. And inspiration is this magical path that knows exactly how to get you there, but also knows how to get you to get the things along the way to make it the most beneficial, to give you things you would have never thought of, and to give you things that you did think of, but that you could not have possibly imagined how you could have got to those things. So it's obviously the cooler way to do things. Be inspired. Don't just motivate. Don't try to force yourself to do things. Receive the impulses and the ideas and the feeling, and then follow that and go with it. And if you're not feeling good and you're not having any fun, then you're probably off of the path. If it just feels like a lot of fucking hard work, then you're probably off the path and you're just beating yourself up. An important part that I want to add to this is that you're not just going on a fucking wild goose chase and just having no clue. When you know something, you know something. When you have a strong sign that gives you a sense that you're on the right path, that's all it takes to get you to keep going, to then get you to the result that you're looking for. Like off the top of my head, I can think of examples. Now I'll put myself in the shoes of the other person for a second, and let's just say you're the model. I can remember it wasn't actually a music video, it was a short film that I did. Did we do a music video too? A short film that I did a while ago, and I remember really connecting with the person, about the idea of what it was that we were going to be shooting, and it felt good along the way, and they were into it, they were sold on it and everything and so forth, but it wasn't until we were actually shooting it, it wasn't until that day that we were shooting it, that for the person who was coming to shoot it with me, that it really clicked in. And I remember them being like, really thrilled about it and really excited about it in a different way. And it was because this person that they were with, boyfriend, had died, I guess it was somewhat recently. And it was still obvious, even if it was a year ago, what difference would it make? It would still be something that would be there, that's present. And as I've talked about in another video that I did, I'm always a conduit for that kind of energy, that exchange. And so when they were coming to shoot, she was pulling in, she heard this song that was like their song, the song of the guy who died. And then she saw me. It was a hotel that we were shooting at, standing in the window. I just happened to be standing and looking out the window at that time. And I was sure from where I was that was her for some reason. I was like, that's her pulling in, even though it was a ridiculous assumption because there's so many fucking people pulling in, I couldn't have known. But I remember thinking that. And she thought it was him, meaning the guy who died, standing in the window when she pulled in and heard the song. Like brought it into focus what she was doing and the importance of it. Like, that's how silly we are as human beings, but that's the way that it is that sometimes we just need a little sign, and then it's like, oh, yeah, duh. Like, so when people act like, oh, there's no signs, and there's no this, and there's no that, well, you have to experience it yourself. When you see enough things kind of come together, you're like, something's fucking going on here. The universe is fucking with me. And that's not even a good example either. I can talk about other ones that are so many different things happening at the same time that you're like, get the fuck out of here. But another one I can think of was just for myself. I remember a moment when I got the inspiration to make a particular music video. I just happened to be walking, and I wasn't thinking I need to come up with an idea for music video. It was just sort of like it got downloaded to my brain, and it happened all at once. And I just felt it and was like, whoa! Now, maybe the slightest moment of hesitation could have kicked in where I might have then been like, well, that's fucking stupid. Like, where's that idea coming from? But I was walking as I got this, and I turned and I looked to my left, and I'm coming up this hill, and there's a house that's just exploding with all these Christmas lights, and this huge angel at the top, and I think I have a picture of it, and it was like instantaneous for me that like stupidly connected with me. Now, am I just fucking delusional and making it up? No, because when you feel the resonance of it, that's how you distinguish what the difference is between motivation and inspiration. That's what the difference is between, now I have to fucking do this thing, versus like, it's an okay idea. And there was the sense for about 0.2 seconds of being like, am I gonna do this? This is an idea. This is coming to me. It was the video for Forever Ever. If you know that video, it's just a ridiculous, trying on of bras. But at that particular moment, when the idea came, it was so stunningly, I have to do that, combined with, there's the big sign telling me, yes, just fucking do it. And so I put the casting notice online when I went home. It was the next morning that the person who's in the video contacted me. And it was like, this is also part of it. Everything that they said in their note about it, everything that was in their resume, it was just obvious. It was just so obvious that that was the person to contact, that I didn't have to wait and I didn't have to think about it. And that's kind of a big difference between when you know you've got something, even if it's just the stupidest music video in the world, who cares? The point is that when you know you're trying to do something and you've got it, you know the difference between when it's like, yes, versus when you're like kind of unsure. Because when it's like, yes, you just pick up the phone. It's like, hey, do you want to fucking do that? That's how I am. I mean, it's like, if I don't feel that, like, and I've learned in a sense from that. It's like, if I don't feel that, like, I got to call them right now. Oh my God, listen, look at this. Look at the note that they just sent. They know exactly what I'm trying. Ah! When it's like that, then you want to do it. Because there's a degree to which a lot of this sounds like it's like, well, get into this mode of being receptive to this inspiration, and then you're just a puppet on a fucking string, and you're just... But it's not really like that. There's a discernment of the choices that you could make. I could shoot any fucking music video and find anybody to be in it, and I could arbitrarily go and just shoot, blast them. I don't want to do that. I want to do the one where it feels right. I want to do the one with the person whom I feel connected to, that there's a thing that we're working on, that it's magical, and we're in, and I'm picky about getting that. And to me, it's like a formula to be able to get that, because the trail, the what it isness of the idea of being inspired is something that's very easily pick-upable. It's very easily perceivable. You know you're on it. So then you just get into a thing of like knowing all the time what the fuck to do, based upon the idea of letting go and being open and being receptive to get any given idea at any given time that you can then run with. And then for the things that you don't necessarily know what to do on, or you don't have the plan for it, you don't get yourself into a, what am I going to do? How can I do it? I don't know what to do. Just relax. And the idea will come. Just like how so many people will tell you that they get their good ideas when they're in the shower or something. It's because you let go. You're not holding something. You're not looking at something. You're not intently focused upon something. You're in a state of doing something that's so distracting that your mind just is there and it's just being, and then ideas come in that aren't yours. And sometimes you get them all at once and you get a whole bunch, and it's like a download to your brain. And then you know that it's not something that you just thought of because it's too complex of a thing that's been handed to you. Or it's a very simple thing that doesn't necessarily look like something would look if you were going to be choosing to do what you would want to do. That's another thing. It's a difference between inspiration and motivation. Is that motivation can only come based upon what you already know, what you've already planned, and what you already thought up or have been told. And now you're going to just try to push yourself to do what those things are, to check that list off. Inspiration is more like, I'm going on this journey. I'm not even sure where the fuck I'm even going, but I know that as I go, now I have this, now I have this, now I have this. Now it's not just that you're going to finish that film with that person. It's that you're going to meet that person, and you're going to connect with that person. You're going to have all kind of communication with that person, and that's going to influence everything that you and that person do. And then it's not just going to be that you made the movie. It's going to be that you had one of the best times ever doing it. Something that you're never going to be able to forget. It's what enables you. It's what lets you know that what you're doing is what you're meaning to do. I mean, if you weren't having experiences that were like that one day I'll never forget, which is like every time I fucking make a video or anything. If I wasn't having those experiences, why would I keep doing it? Why would I even want to do it? I mean, what would be the point of it? It shouldn't be ordinary. It shouldn't just be something that I don't want to do. But the same goes for everything. There can be an inspired call to go to the store that can result in the connection with the next person and the conversation that takes you to the next thing. That's where the knowledge is of how to cast the role or whatever it is that you're looking for. If you're not closed-minded to, it has to fall under this narrow scope and it only is on these things that I've asserted that it must be, that I have allotted, these pieces to this thing, and this is the map that I have and I trust the map. If you're not closed in that sense and narrowing your search engine down to those things, then you just stay much more open. That could then make you feel like, oh, now it's just a shot in the dark, but it isn't like that. It's the opposite of that. It isn't a shot in the dark. It's that you have a sense of knowing, and the sense of knowing is so much stronger than any motivational kind of like inkling to, yeah, I should do this because this is what everybody does. That doesn't have the same kind of juice. It doesn't have the pull. When you feel inspired, you know you're going to do it. And so that's a big difference. And then when you do it and you see the result was so amazing, now you know you're on to, now it's like, now I'm on to it, because if it could just be like this all the time, that would be great. And it can. It can just be like that all the time. The creative thing that you're trying to do can just continually be more flowing, more flowing, more flowing. And now you know what the next movie is that you're going to shoot, because of the fact that you worked with the actors that you worked with, that you cast through this inspired process, that you worked on with this inspired process, and then it developed into more and more and more, and now you can't wait to do more with them. And there's going to be new people coming in too, but there's also going to be this journey of this growth forward with these people and these things that you've already gained or already learned, which is a great thing. I mean, because that's not the same necessarily as that get me to the result immediately, outcome-oriented only kind of motivational kind of a concept of thinking about things. There's also just the enjoyment of it is the whole reason why you're doing it. Because if you weren't actually having any fun in the making of the thing, you shouldn't just be focused on, well, I'm going to get a good result at the end, because for one thing, you're probably not going to get a result that you're going to like, which is the only way that you know that it's good, is if you like it. I mean, forget what everybody else says. Who gives a fuck? Nobody knows what the hell they're talking about. But you're not going to get there by way of forcing yourself and doing something that you don't actually enjoy doing. So once you've made the enjoyment a higher priority, then it's the enjoyment of all aspects of things. So it isn't just the outcomes that you thought that you had to get to, or the artificial deadlines that you created for yourself to try to motivate yourself to squeeze extra action out of yourself in set amount of time will get you to those things. It's the idea of understanding that it's all the things they're all connected. So it isn't just that, well, I found this person for this role. Now I found this person for this role who's also my friend. And now this friend is another representation of knowing that these kinds of people can be in my life. And it's this kind of creative journey that I'm on. And it's not limited. So then it just becomes this all-encompassing, all facets of my life are inspired. All things come in a sense that is the best version possible that the universe got from the bird's eye perspective and put the energy and all the people and the right things together, as opposed to just me with my stupid plan, my stupid exit strategy, my stupid get me point A to point B as fast as possible, which is uninspired, doesn't have any magic. And the magic is everything. Without it, what's the point? There's no fucking point. There's no fucking point. If it's not magical, then just toss it aside.